I woke up this morning, read the news like I always do, and often I go to the Drudge Report, which, for those of you who don't know, it's a news aggregation service where they kind of pull articles from all over the internet, and sometimes he'll put different headlines. Obviously, well, actually, he always puts different headlines, but the headlines kind of give you a clue to the article. So I log in and I'm seeing Trump calls for Cheney's execution. Now, later on today, we have right here the Arizona AG investigates this alleged threat against former Congresswoman Liz Cheney. And then we have Harris condemns his violent rhetoric. Now, right here, if you expand this a little bit, we have world in shock. The ex-president increases violent threats against opponents. And Liz Cheney, this is how dictators destroy nations. Wow. Well, I'm thinking, what did Trump say? So I end up clicking this to see exactly what he said. Now, I got to be honest with you. In full disclosure, I'm just figuring, okay, so Trump said something that was twisted. Not twisted like crazy or sick, twisted like taken out of context. And that's exactly what happened here. I click this, and we see Trump embraces violent rhetoric, suggests Liz Cheney should have guns trained on her face. And this is from the Washington Post, as you can see right here. So I'm like, really? Let's see. So we have Republican nominee Donald Trump faced a fresh controversy on Friday after he suggested the former Congresswoman Liz Cheney should have guns, quote, trained on her face. Wow, that sounds terrible. Let's see. Vilification of a prominent critic from within his party, as well as his use of violent imagery. Oh, that's terrible. Let's see. So we end up going on, and let's see. Did they actually? I'm trying to see if they actually had the actual segment here. So let's see if I can actually get that played here. Okay. So here's his quote right here. He says, "She's a radical war hawk," Trump said of Cheney, following a tangent about his pardon in 2018 of Louis Scooter Libby, a former top aide to Dick Cheney, her father. And then this is what got him in trouble. This is ridiculous right here. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it, when the guns are trained on her face. Okay? So now, let's think about this. He said, she's a radical war hawk. And then he said, let's put her with a rifle, standing there, with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it, when the guns are trained on her face. Now, when I read this, my thinking is, what he's basically saying is, Liz Cheney, along with a lot of neocons, love war. They just live to get the United States in war. And of course, it's an easy decision for them to make because it's not them in the field getting shot at. It's not their children or their grandchildren. They're sending other people, other people's children, other people's grandchildren to war. And sometimes this is very, very necessary. Oftentimes it's not. And with radical war hawks like Liz Cheney, let's face it, that's what they do. So what he's saying is, how likely would she want to go to war if she was the one out there? If she was the one getting shot at? Makes sense. I've said the same thing many times. I've seen many people who favor, let's say, an isolationist foreign policy saying the same thing. And, some people say, he's threatened to have her executed. He said no such thing about having her executed. I mean, think about this. Think about a firing line. Someone's going to be executed by being shot. You don't give them a rifle. You don't give them a rifle to shoot the people who are shooting them. He's not saying, I want to send her to a firing squad. He's saying, you know what, she likes war so much? Well, if she's going to vote for a war, let her go fight in it then. Let's see how much she's in favor of a war if she has to be one of the people putting her life on the line, if she has to be the one fighting it. That's what this says. You know what? I agree with the man 100%. 100%. Because I think too many politicians take things too lightly when they send people to war. Okay? So that's my thinking on that. But then, of course, what happens is you go back here, and what do you see? Trump calls for Cheney's execution. A more fitting headline would be something like, Trump criticizes war hawks. Trump's, could say something like, Trump thinks, warmongers should go to war themselves, or something like that. But no, it's Trump calls for Cheney's execution. He did no such thing. Okay? Then, another thing that's kind of interesting, we have the world in shock. Okay? So I click this, Express US, the-express.com. I've never heard of this website before, but it makes the top page of Drudge. And what's funny is, this says, Trump says Liz Cheney should be, quote, shot in the face by 9 guns in sickening fantasy. Now, for a little while, I was a freelance writer and a reporter, okay? Very short period of time. I am by no means anyone who of any note, okay? But what I do know as a consumer of news is when you see something that has something in quotes like this, like Trump says Liz Cheney should be, quote, shot in the face, that means that when Trump made this comment, he used the phrase, shot in the face. I just read the quote to you. I don't remember seeing that. Now here he says, guns trained on her face. Okay? Let's see if they actually have the entire quote here again. Okay? Let's see. Well, he says she's a very dumb individual. I agree with that. Okay, so here's the quote again. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, said Trump. Let's see how she feels about it, when the guns are trained on her face. I don't see where it said that, shot in the face. Okay, and again, we have shot in the face. He did not say that. They're making up things, and they're putting them in quotes, and they're saying he said these things. He did not say these things. Okay? Didn't say them. And then you have Liz Cheney. This is how dictators destroy free nations. You know what? Don't tell me Liz Cheney didn't know what he was saying, what he was alluding to, what he meant. And what he said rather clearly, she knows. She's just ignoring it, and she's hoping that people who aren't paying attention won't notice all the lies. Okay? Ex-president increases violent threats against opponents. That wasn't a violent threat. Harris condemns his violent rhetoric. Harris condemns his... And she says, I love this, Kamala says, his rhetoric is disqualifying for the increased violent rhetoric towards Liz Cheney. Okay, now you look at this. Kamala Harris condemned what she described as the increasingly violent rhetoric used by former President Donald Trump towards former GOP Congressperson Liz Cheney. It is disqualifying, she said, while reiterating her claim that Trump is, quote, unstable. Okay? Now, let's see again here. At issue are comments made during an event hosted by Tucker Carlson, which Trump blasted Cheney as stupid and a war hawk, but then insulted her, suggesting that she'd behave differently if there were guns shooting at her, referring to Cheney as a very dumb individual. Okay? And again, now here's the quote. Now, they put, if the guns were, quote, shooting at her, over here, she's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her. Okay, let's see how she feels about it. With guns trained on her face. Yeah, he's not threatening her. He is not threatening her. It is absolutely ridiculous. And then here we have, even worse, he has increased the violent rhetoric Donald Trump has about political opponents, and in great detail suggested rifles should be trained on former Representative Liz Cheney. This must be disqualifying. Anyone who wants to be president of the United States who uses that kind of violent rhetoric is clearly disqualified and unqualified to be president. Representative Cheney is a true patriot who has shown extraordinary courage in putting country over party. I wonder if she thought Liz Cheney was a patriot. Oh, I don't know, like 8 years ago when she was just a Republican and she wasn't kissing her rear end. Trump is increasingly, however, someone who considers his political opponents the enemy, is permanently out for revenge, and is increasingly unstable and unhinged. His enemies list has grown longer. His rhetoric has grown more extreme, and he is even less focused than before on the needs and the concerns and the challenges facing the American people. Wow. This is just, it's just freaking horrendous, I gotta tell you. And then, to show these things get worse, now you have the Arizona AG investigates. She's investigating the threat that Donald Trump made. Okay? Arizona top prosecutor investigating Trump's comments about Cheney as possible death threat. During his Glendale appearance, Trump suggested his Republican critic should face 9-barreled shooting at her. Well, yeah, if she thinks it's okay to go to war for no good reason, then yeah, grab a rifle and go to war. I don't see the problem with that. Arizona's top prosecutor tells 12 News she's investigating whether Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump violated state law by making a death threat against former GOP Rep Liz Cheney during remarks. So, if you have ever criticized a politician for wanting to go to war, and you felt that this is not a war we should be involved in, and you said, you know what, if they think it's such a good idea, maybe they should go. Well, guess what then? You just did the same thing as Trump did. You worded it differently, but you implied the same thing. So maybe you and I should also be charged too then. Look at this. I have already asked my criminal division chief to start looking at that statement, analyzing it for whether it qualifies as a death threat under Arizona's laws. Attorney General Mays, a first-term Democrat, said during Friday's taping of Sunday Square Off, I'm not prepared now to say whether it was or it wasn't, but it is not helpful as we prepare for our election and as we try to make sure that we keep the peace at our polling places and in our state. The funny thing is, they're the ones making matters worse. They are taking comments out of context, writing egregiously dishonest headlines for these things, and then they're pretending like there's a problem out there that they created themselves. It is really disgusting, and I got to tell you, Drudge Report should really be ashamed of themselves, because what's happening is they are framing us in this certain way to make it look like he's saying things he's not even saying. It's to the point now I don't even believe it. When I see stuff, I'm like, oh, how did they twist it nowadays? Because I kind of figured they twisted what he said. And it's funny because they also have a similar headline that he made about referring to Mark Milley. I guess that one's not gaining as much traction for them. Maybe they need to put it in a larger red font. Because I'm thinking that the bigger the lies on the Drudge Report, the larger and redder the font is. You know, I got to tell you, I would just like it if the reporting was honest. Now, you want to criticize him for criticizing the war hawk? Fine. But to actually make up lies and then to actually cite news sites that cite quotes that aren't quotes, that should be journalism 101. There's a lot of high school kids out there who are probably taking their first journalism class saying, you're not supposed to do that. And if they are recognizing it, whether they like Trump or hate Trump or like Kamala Harris or hate Kamala Harris, I'm glad someone is noticing it. So be careful what you read. I'll talk to you later.